stop. Sovereign starseed of Gaia, the Arcturian protocol keepers have already located the wealth clause encoded into your soul line, and what they are confirming now is not a promise. It is a contractual recognition that has been waiting for this exact moment of activation. This is a direct Arcturian transmission from the protocol keepers. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly why your material flow has been interrupted, what hidden pattern has kept you separated from wealth that was never meant to be earned from scratch, and what the Arcturian protocol keepers already know about this phase of your reclamation. But here is the first revelation. The financial struggle you have been living inside is not evidence that you were excluded from prosperity. It is evidence that the wealth clause encoded into your soul line was never activated. And that activation is what this transmission initiates. You did not find this message by accident. Your financial field brought you here because the contractual timing has already been confirmed. What the Arcturian protocol keepers are identifying in your field right now is not a new opportunity. It is an old agreement, one written into your soul origin, that has been dormant, misread as lack, and mistaken for unworthiness every time money arrived and disappeared, every time effort produced nothing proportional, every time stability formed and broke before it could hold. The algorithm only delivered this. It did not create the timing. The wealth clause was always encoded. What was missing was the moment of recognition. That moment is now. Being rich is not your aspiration. It is your contractual birthright. And what the protocol keepers are transmitting now is the signal that the next phase of material flow is eligible to begin, not because you finally did enough, but because the clause has always existed and the field is now responding to its own encoded instruction. Like this transmission, if you know your financial struggle is not about effort, subscribe to Arcturian Gold Codex if you are ready to stop earning from scratch and start reclaiming what was always encoded as yours. Comment 777 if you feel an old wealth contract being activated in your field right now. Comment receive if you are ready to stop misreading your soul line as lack and begin living inside the contractual abundance that was written before you arrived here. This is not motivation. This is a protocol keeper confirmation. The wealth clause is active. The reclamation has already begun. You are guided here because the pattern is already active. What has been sitting beneath your financial life is not a story you invented to explain your losses. It is not a convenient myth to soften the memory of what you tried and what did not hold. It is not a narrative assembled from disappointment so that the pain would feel less arbitrary. The Arcturian protocol keepers are not transmitting comfort, they are transmitting a diagnostic confirmation. And what they are identifying in your field is precise, structured, and older than anything you have been blaming yourself for. It is older than your most recent financial crisis. It is older than the decisions you have rehearsed regretting. It is older than the version of yourself that began trying harder, believing that effort was the missing variable. The pattern was already installed before the effort began, and that is the first thing the protocol keepers need you to genuinely receive. The pattern they have located is this. Your material field is not broken. It is obeying an instruction, an older one that was written into the generational line before you had the vocabulary to question it, before you understood that the way money moved through your family was not simply the result of decisions or circumstances, but the visible surface of an encoded scarcity instruction, still running beneath your effort, beneath your progress, beneath every moment when abundance arrived and then disappeared without clear cause. The instruction is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It simply operates quietly, mechanically, consistently, beneath every financial experience you have ever had, filtering what enters, redirecting what accumulates, and dissolving what nearly stayed. This is the first thing the protocol keepers need you to understand. What you have been experiencing financially is not the result of insufficient effort. It is not the consequence of poor timing alone, wrong choices alone, or some fundamental deficiency in your capacity to generate or hold wealth. It is the surface symptom of a financial field that is still responding to a command it received long before you gave it any instruction of your own. You have been working on top of a foundation that was already coded to resist what you were building, and no amount of effort applied at the surface level can override an instruction embedded at the level of the field itself. Think about the specific texture of your financial life, not the broad strokes, the specific texture. Money arrives, and then something immediately claims it. An unexpected expense, a sudden obligation, a system failure, an emergency that seems to materialize the moment your balance begins to settle. You work harder, and the result is not proportional. You create something, and the return does not match what was invested. You reach a point of relative stability, and then something shifts, and the floor opens again, and you are back at the position you thought you had moved beyond. There is a particular exhaustion that comes from this specific cycle, not the exhaustion of failure, but the exhaustion of near success, the exhaustion of having almost held it, of having seen the shape of stability clearly enough to feel it, and then watching it dissolve before it could become permanent. That exhaustion is a diagnostic signal. It means the pattern has been active long enough for you to have learned its rhythm without ever having been given the language to name what you were learning. This is not a random sequence of misfortune. This is a pattern, and a pattern has a source. The protocol keepers identify this as financial field distortion, a state in which the abundance that is genuinely moving toward your material life is being intercepted, rerouted, or dissolved before it can settle. Not because you are unworthy of it, not because the universe has excluded you from prosperity, but because somewhere in the architecture of your energetic inheritance, there is still an active instruction that treats wealth as unsafe, unfamiliar, incompatible with survival, or simply not permitted to consolidate in the hands of someone from your line. The distortion is not a judgment. It is not cosmic punishment. It is an old field command still executing with mechanical precision inside a life that has already grown beyond the conditions that originally generated it. This instruction did not originate with you. This is essential to hold. It arrived through the people who raised you, through the financial emotional atmosphere of the household where you learned what money meant, what it cost, what it caused, and what it threatened. It arrived through the texture of conversations about bills, through the tension that entered a room when money was short, through the way joy was always slightly conditional on whether the numbers were stable, through the silence that descended when a financial crisis arrived, and no one had a framework for it other than endurance. It arrived through the generations before them. People who survived through scarcity, who learned that wanting more was dangerous, who encoded the belief that prosperity was meant for someone else, that struggle was the natural condition, that money was either something to be afraid of or something that always left. Those people were not wrong to survive the way they did, but the survival instruction they encoded was never meant to be permanent. It was meant for a specific set of conditions that no longer exist, and yet it is still running, still governing, still shaping your results as though those conditions remain in full effect. You absorbed that field. Not consciously, not by choice. You absorbed it the way a child absorbs language without deciding to, without filtering it, without knowing that what was being installed was not truth, but instruction. The child does not decide which words to learn first. The child does not choose which emotional meanings to attach to money, to receiving, to asking for more, to the feeling of having enough. Those meanings are installed through repetition, through atmosphere, through what is celebrated and what is punished and what is simply never spoken. And that instruction, embedded at a level beneath conscious belief, has been governing your material results every time your mind moved toward growth, and every time your field quietly, automatically, pushed abundance back out. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary frustration. It is the moment your system stops pretending this pattern is just bad luck. If this transmission put language around a financial struggle you have been carrying in silence, Arcturian Wealth Scan, the Gold Frequency Audit, was created for this exact stage. It is not another promise of abundance. It is a direct audit of the hidden pattern affecting your material field, so you can begin to see whether the drain is rooted in inherited scarcity, guilt around wealth, energetic rejection, or an older financial instruction still shaping your results. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. There is a specific quality to how inherited scarcity disguises itself inside a person's current life. It does not announce itself as a generational wound. It does not present itself as an old instruction still running. It presents itself as your personality. It presents itself as your habits, your decisions, your patterns of thinking about money. Things that feel entirely personal, entirely yours, entirely chosen, but that are in fact the behavioral expression of a much older field command that has simply found a human shape inside you to keep repeating itself through. This is perhaps the most insidious dimension of inherited financial distortion. It does not feel inherited. It feels like you. It feels like the truth about who you are and what you are capable of. And when something feels that deeply personal, examining it feels like an act of self-attack rather than an act of liberation. You tell yourself you are bad with money. You tell yourself you make impulsive decisions or avoidant decisions, or that you self-sabotage, or that you simply never learned how to manage wealth correctly. And some of that may be true on the surface level, but beneath the behavior, beneath the pattern of choices, there is an energetic instruction that precedes the choices. That instruction is what the protocol keepers are identifying now, not to excuse the behavior, to expose the root. Because you cannot correct a pattern at the level of behavior if the instruction driving it is operating at a deeper level than behavior ever reaches. Discipline applied to distortion does not dissolve the distortion. It simply adds the exhaustion of effort to the already existing weight of the inherited field command. And the person carries both the discipline and the drag, and wonders why the results still do not match the investment. This is the first recognition. What looks like personal financial failure is the visible surface of a field still obeying a scarcity command that was not yours to begin with. Now understand this about retention failure, because this is one of the most precise and least named aspects of financial field distortion. Retention failure is not simply losing money. It is the specific inability to hold abundance even after it has already arrived. It is the pattern where money enters your life and you can feel it for a brief moment, and then something happens. Something always happens. The car, the medical bill, the rent increase, the person who needs help, the opportunity that costs money before it returns it, the investment that collapses, the system that breaks at the worst possible time. And the timing of these arrivals is not incidental. They cluster around moments of relative financial expansion. They appear precisely when the bounce is higher than usual, when something positive has just landed, when the sensation of having enough begins to form. The timing is the diagnostic detail that most people miss because they are focused entirely on the crisis itself, rather than on when the crisis chose to arrive. The protocol keepers are identifying that for a significant number of people in this field right now, what appears to be a series of unfortunate events is actually a single retention failure pattern running through multiple surface manifestations. The form changes. The mechanism beneath it does not. And the mechanism beneath it is this. The field was never given permission to hold abundance. The old scarcity instruction does not simply block money from entering. It opens the vessel from the bottom the moment money begins to fill it. So no matter how much flows in, the vessel never reaches the level where accumulation becomes possible. The water pours in from the top with genuine effort, genuine creativity, genuine generation. And it exits from the base with equal consistency, through a leak that the conscious mind cannot see because it was installed below the level of conscious access. This is not metaphor. This is the functional description of what the protocol keepers are reading in the fields of people who work hard, who create, who generate, and who still somehow never hold. And interwoven with retention failure is something even more hidden: guilt around prosperity. This one is difficult to see from the inside precisely because guilt does not always feel like guilt. Sometimes it feels like generosity taken too far. Sometimes it feels like discomfort when money increases, a subtle inner tension that something is wrong when things begin to improve, a need to immediately redistribute or diminish what has just accumulated so that the feeling of wrongness passes. Sometimes it feels like a belief that wanting more is selfish, that financial ease is something to be embarrassed about in front of people who still struggle, that holding wealth while others lack it makes you complicit in something. These beliefs feel moral. They feel like conscience. They feel like an ethical position about how the world should work. They are actually guilt-coded rejection of abundance, and they function as an internal instruction to expel wealth before it settles. The guilt is real. The moral feeling behind it is real. But the action it produces, the quiet, consistent self-reduction, is not a moral act. It is a field-level expulsion mechanism that has found a moral justification to make itself feel legitimate. You may have given money away when you needed to keep it, not because you are irresponsible, but because holding it produced a discomfort so specific that release felt like relief. You may have undercharged for your work, declined opportunities that felt too large, turned away from financial advancement with an explanation that sounded practical, but was rooted in an older sense that too much was not safe for you to have. You may have made yourself smaller in financial negotiations, accepted less than what was fair, allowed others to set the terms because something in you believed that asserting your own financial value was a form of arrogance your line had not earned the right to. These are not personality flaws. These are the behavioral expression of a guilt program running in your financial field. And that program has a source in the inherited belief that prosperity is something your line was not meant to hold without consequence. This brings the diagnostic into an even deeper layer, the loyalty pattern. This is one of the most painful and least examined dimensions of inherited scarcity. There is a form of financial self-limitation that functions as unconscious loyalty to the people and the line you came from. If your family struggled, if your parents sacrificed, if the people who loved you never had enough, then exceeding their financial position can feel like a betrayal. Not consciously. The conscious mind may fully want success, may be actively pursuing it, may feel no conflict at the level of thought, but at the level of the field, something registers the gap between your material reality and theirs and begins to close it. Not because success is wrong, because the body learned that connection, love, belonging, and safety were associated with the shared experience of struggle, and moving too far from that shared experience feels like moving too far from the people themselves. Financial success becomes unconsciously coded as abandonment, and the field, trying to preserve the bond, quietly dismantles the material progress that threatens to create distance. The protocol keepers identify this as a loyalty bind, a field-level attachment that treats scarcity as the price of belonging and prosperity as the cost of disconnection. And it runs silently, beneath ambition, beneath effort, beneath every genuine desire to build something stable, quietly undoing what the visible life is trying to construct. The person does not feel disloyal. They feel unlucky. They feel blocked. They feel as though something is working against them from outside, when in fact it is working from inside, from a place of profound, misdirected love for the people and the line they came from. The bind does not need to be resented to be released, but it must be seen before it can be named, and it must be named before it can stop governing. Now understand what happens at the threshold, because the threshold is where the pattern becomes most visible to those who are watching carefully. The threshold is the specific point where material progress reaches a level that the field instruction cannot permit. It is not always the same number, the same visible marker. It is a felt level. The point where stability begins to feel real, where accumulation begins to feel possible, where the future begins to feel less like a threat and more like a destination. And at that point, something arrives. Always. The breakdown, the crisis, the conflict, the unexpected demand, the sudden loss. It arrives precisely when things were almost there, precisely when stability was forming, precisely when the pattern was close to being broken. And the devastation of the threshold collapse is not only material, it is also the erosion of belief. Because each time the floor opens at the moment of near consolidation, the person learns at a level beneath language that stability is not actually available to them, that getting close is the most dangerous position. That hope itself becomes a risk, because hope is always followed by the collapse that proves the hope was premature. This is not coincidence. The Arcturian protocol keepers identify the threshold collapse as one of the most reliable diagnostic signs that the viewer is not dealing with random misfortune, but with a specific field-level ceiling installed by the scarcity instruction. The instruction does not oppose effort. It does not prevent partial progress. It simply cannot permit consolidation. It cannot permit the moment where enough becomes stable enough to build from. And so the ceiling activates, and the structure collapses, and the person rebuilds and reaches the threshold again and again. Something arrives, and the cycle reads from the outside as chronic bad luck, but reads from the inside of the field as an automated response to a predetermined limit. The limit was set before the person arrived at it. The collapse was scheduled not by fate but by field instruction, and the instruction does not care how hard the person worked to get there. It only knows that the threshold has been reached, and that its command is to prevent what comes next. You have lived this. You may have reached the threshold more than once. You may have rebuilt more than once. And you may have told yourself that this time would be different, because you were smarter, more prepared, more disciplined, only to find the same mechanism waiting at the same approximate point of financial altitude. The sameness of the collapse point is itself the evidence. Different circumstances, different timelines, different external causes, but the same interior position when the floor finally gives. That sameness is the signature of a field instruction, not a coincidence. The protocol keepers are not transmitting this to deepen your despair. They are transmitting this because the threshold is also a diagnostic landmark, and when you can see the threshold for what it is, not a sign of your personal ceiling, but a sign of the inherited field instruction reaching its activation point, you have moved from confusion into recognition. And recognition is the first structural shift required before the pattern can be interrupted. You cannot interrupt what you cannot see, and what you could not see until now was that the collapse was never random. It was always the instruction completing its sequence. Here is the deeper revelation that this transmission is building toward. Your financial life, as it has been, is not a reflection of your value. It is a reflection of the instruction still active in your field. And the Arcturians identify a crucial distinction between these two things that most interpretive systems collapse into one. Your effort has been real. Your desire has been real. Your capacity to generate has been real. What has not been aligned with those things is the field beneath them, the inherited energetic architecture that has been filtering what you generate, intercepting what moves toward you, and expelling what briefly settles. That architecture is not you. It was installed in you. And what has been installed can be identified, read, and interrupted. The distinction between you and the instruction is not semantic. It is the entire foundation of what the protocol keepers are transmitting. Because without that distinction, the pattern and the person remain fused. And a person cannot interrupt a pattern they still believe is their own nature. The wealth clause encoded into your soul line was never designed to operate inside a distorted field. It was designed for a field in which the scarcity instruction has been exposed and the retention failure has been named. It was written for the version of your material life that comes after recognition, not before. And this transmission exists at the boundary between before and after. The protocol keepers have already confirmed the timing. The field is already responding to the diagnostic activation that began the moment you arrived here. That response is not dramatic. It does not announce itself with immediate material change. It announces itself as a shift in clarity. The sensation that something you have been circling for years has finally been named precisely enough to be held. What has felt like constant loss may be the readable stage of an older scarcity pattern completing its final visible cycle. What keeps leaving your life may never have been allowed to settle under the old instruction. Not because it was not meant for you, but because the vessel still had a leak at its base that the old command installed, and your conscious effort could not reach alone. What feels like financial instability may actually be the surface turbulence of the field beginning to resist the scarcity instruction for the first time. And resistance is not the same as defeat. What feels like repeated bad luck may be a line of inherited distortion still running its final repetitions beneath an effort that has already begun to exceed it. The excess of your effort over the old field limit is itself evidence that the instruction is weakening. That you are still here, still building, still attempting, after everything the pattern has taken, is not stubbornness. It is the soul line exerting pressure against an inherited wall that was never structurally permanent. You are not poor because you are incapable. You are not failing in the ordinary sense. You are not being punished. You are experiencing the visible surface of an older field instruction that was never yours, that was inherited before you could consent to it, and that has been operating beneath your material life with perfect mechanical consistency. The Arcturian protocol keepers do not see this as lack alone. They see it as distortion, inherited interference, guilt-coded rejection, forced incompatibility with stable abundance that has nothing to do with what you deserve, and everything to do with what the field was taught to allow. And what the field was taught to allow, and what the field was taught to allow, can be untaught. What was installed as a survival response in one generation does not have to be the governing instruction in every generation that follows. That is what the protocol keepers are here to confirm. Say this if it is true for you: I no longer confuse the pattern with my identity. Say it again if you need to, because that sentence is not an affirmation, it is a diagnostic boundary. It is the moment you place the inheritance on one side of a line and your actual capacity on the other. It is the moment the fused image of self and pattern begins to separate into two distinct things, one of which belongs to you, and one of which was always a borrowed field command wearing your face. And from that separation, the first genuine shift in the field becomes structurally possible. Not instant, not automatic, but structurally possible in a way it was not before the naming occurred. The wealth clause is active. The recognition has already begun. The field that brought you here was not malfunctioning. It was navigating toward this exact confirmation. And what comes next is not more hoping, more waiting, more working harder inside a distorted field. What comes next is the interruption of the instruction itself. The reading, the naming, the deliberate recalibration of a field that was never meant to remain in permanent scarcity. The clause was written before the distortion arrived. It will remain legible after the distortion is addressed. And the moment of legibility is what this transmission has been building toward from its first word. This is only the first layer of what the protocol keepers are transmitting, and you are already inside it. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this pattern has already touched your financial life. It could be money that never stays, sudden drains, repeated setbacks, guilt when things begin to improve, or the feeling that stability always slips away. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognizes something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who works hard but still feels trapped in an invisible cycle of lack. And if you are ready to understand the pattern instead of blaming yourself, subscribe to Arcturian Gold Codex. You are not watching this by accident. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a pattern already in motion. And this is only the beginning.